Hello, everyone. Let's look at an example to do with deciles and quantiles of a grouped continuous variable. This is from Clark and Cook, 4th edition, example 4.6.1. And it's about incomes of married couples over retiring age in 1973 and are shown in columns 1 and 2 of the table below. So these are the two columns. Column number 1 shows income and column number 2 shows number of married couples in thousands. So we are required to draw a cumulative frequency curve for the data, and from it estimate the lowest decile, the median, the lower and upper quartiles of income. And we use the curve to estimate the proportion of married couples who had a gross weekly income between 22 and 28. Now, since we have been requested to draw a cumulative curve, then it sounds reasonable that we should have a cumulative frequency, a column of cumulative frequency, which wasn't there before in this table, but it has been added. And I think you remember quite well how to get the cumulative frequency. It's basically the frequency in the class interval, the first class interval. You add the second, in the second class interval, you add the previous and the current, and then you keep on adding, so it keeps on up to the end, up to the total frequency, which in this case is 2,059 thousand married couples. That is 2,059,000. So we need to use that curve to answer the questions that we've been given. Right. So basically, the first step is to add a third column to the table containing cumulative frequency, which we have already done, as I showed you in the table on the previous slide. Then these values of cumulative frequency are plotted against the upper end points of the class intervals of the income distribution. So the cumulative frequency is basically our y-axis, and then on the x-axis we have upper end points of the class intervals of the income distribution. Now, for example, the upper end point for this interval, so this is 12 to 14, 12 to somewhere below 14, very near to 14. And now this is, we don't take this as the upper end point, but somewhere very close to 14. For example, 13.999999 would be one of those values. In this case, we conveniently take 13.99 as the upper end point for this interval 12 to below 14. Now, below 12, we don't have any data on the frequencies. So we know that maybe anywhere below 12, and the end point would be maybe 11.99, we would have a value 0 if we take that as the corresponding upper point of that interval. So the number of married couples in that interval would be 0. But for 12 to 13 point something is 144. So 144 corresponds to 13.99. 0 somewhere there corresponds to 11.99. Then we have 330 would be corresponding to 15.99, the upper endpoint between 14 and 16. 329 will be corresponding to something like 17.9 and so forth. Now, what would be a bit challenging is this 30 or over, because we need a value that is below over. Now, what is over here? So in this example, the upper point for 30 has been conveniently put at 50. Yeah, so that's how we will do that. So we are going to draw this in the y-axis, and then the upper points of each interval in the x-axis. So what is being described here is what I've already told you. So when we draw points of each frequency against the end point, and then we are going to put a line through those dots, a very smooth, a best smooth curve through the circles on the diagram to get a cumulative frequency curve. And if we do that, then this is what we're going to get. So this point is 11.99, and somewhere here is 13.99, and I think this should be 16.99. So this is now 0 if in the y-axis. In the x-axis, this is 144, and this should be 400, close to 500. That is the 474. So 144, 474, the second value. The first value, 0 there. Now, so the first question is that we should get the first decile. So that is the gross weekly income, the X value, which where the total number of values, 10% of the total number of values lie below it. Now, the total number of values are here, so the frequency, and the total is what we have here. So we have 2059, or 2,059,000. Now, 10% of this is basically 205.9. So 10%, that's the lowest decile, is 205.9. So 205.9 will be lying somewhere. If this is 100, in the middle it should be 250. Then 205.9, let me have a better pointer, say this. So this is 250 somewhere there, then maybe, let's say if we move down 50 there, so 205 should be maybe somewhere there. If we go across and come somewhere here, we know this is 144, and then here 205. So it should be somewhere around 14, around the value 14. If we had a graph paper, it would be easier to approximate that. But if we look at this, so this is what I'm saying: 1/10 of the total frequency must lie below the first decile. Thus, from the graph, we need to find the income corresponding to 205.9. So this is 10% of 2059 on the vertical axis, and it is 14.4. So mine, I was approximating around 14, but if you have a graph paper, then you should find that the income there is 14.4. So the first decile is thus 14.4. So below the income value of 14.4 lies 10% of the population we're looking at, or the observations we're looking at. And then come the median. So from the graph, the median has to have half of the total frequency. Half of 25.9 is 1029.5. So if we go to the graph, 1029.5. So here is 1,000. And then 29 maybe should be, this one is 1,250. 29 may be somewhere there. So if we move up to there, it should be around maybe close to 20. Let's see what we have here. So close to 20. So you see the income now, if you had a graph paper, the income corresponding to this is 19.8, very close to 20. And then what were we asked to get? We were asked also to get the lower and upper quartiles. So lower quartile is 25% of 1059. The upper quartile is 75% of 1059. So that is Then you have so is that, or else 1/4 of 2059, which is this. And then we have 3/4 of this, which is that. So what you do, then you go and check on the y-axis, find where this one is, then move to the curve and find the point down the curve. So look where 514 is, so 500 is there, so 514 somewhere here. Go up to the curve and move downwards. That should be maybe around, should be 16 point something, if I'm not wrong. What is it here? This is 16.2. Then for Q3, if you do the same thing, is 26.2. So we have answered the first question which required us to find the lowest decile, the median, the lower and upper quartiles of income. Now it says, use the curve to estimate the proportion of married couples who had a gross weekly income between 22 and 28. And I think you had something like this during your test that previously you did previously, and it was on a histogram. I think I asked you to do something like this. And so here too says, use the curve to estimate the proportion of married couples who had a gross weekly income between 22 and 28. So now here we'll be starting on the x-axis. Look at between 22 and 28 on the curve and go to the y-axis, find the values on 28, subtract the value on 22, and that value now will be dividing it by 2059 times 100. If you want a percentage, then we'll get a percentage. So this is what to do. So 22, so here maybe 21, 22. So 22 here, if you move up somewhere there. Now, if you go across here, this should be maybe 1,000, maybe 200, around that, 1,200. So, and 28 then is maybe somewhere here. If I go up on 28, then I go across this side, then maybe 1,100 approximately. If I had a graph paper, then I would be saying, I would be getting exact figures, but maybe 1,100 minus 1,200, that should give me maybe 1,100, 1,200. 1,500, no, this 15, 1,600, that is 1,600 minus this, so 400 approximately. But now this, the answer I have, which is a bit accurate, is that I think this is 360 basically. So if you use the graph paper, you'll be a bit accurate. So find the graph, cumulative frequency up to 22 is the 1230. I was putting it at 12,200. And this one now is, I was putting it at 1,600. This is 1,590. And the difference is 360. So says the proportion of those having incomes between 22 and that. So the proportions basically, you have 360, those who have income between this and that, divided by the total, which is 0.175, which is about 17.5% or 17.5% of the whole. So this is how you can use a graph, a cumulative curve, to calculate different quantities that you are asked to. So I hope if you are given such a question, you can use it. I don't know how people fared during the last test with on a histogram, but I thought it was quite something that those who can think can use that information from the sketch histogram. Thank you so much for now. I wish you all the best. Bye-bye.